And the second example, Skype. It's also working in the P2P model. The primary service is to send voice over the internet, having voice calls. It also allows text messaging and video conferencing. Right? It was quite popular back then, a decade and maybe more ago. That's before smartphone is popular. People are still using the old cell phone to make calls. So what's nice about Skype there is it not only allow people installing the Skype software to call each other on top of PC. It also allow PC talking to regular phones and back. So you can imagine business people love the idea. They get to save a lot of international call money as long as one end is sitting on a PC. But recent years we are all using smartphones, so it's not it's not that big a deal. Okay? Everyone can install an app and use either Wi-Fi or the data part of the 4G to send voice. The application layer protocol running in Skype is proprietary, meaning it's a commercial secret. Right? The reason that we can talk about Skype here is because there are some hackers, okay, probing the nodes, intercepting messages, so we get to see a little bit how Skype works. And therefore, we see Skype network is actually hierarchical. So Skype P2P network or Skype overlay network is hierarchical. Let me explain a little bit about this term overlay network. If you think of these peer processes running on the internet, think of each one of them being a node, and the peer processes that are connected to each other having a link between the nodes. Then this Skype network, right, is also a network. It's just that it's at the application layer and overlaying the physical internet network. So that's why P2P network is also called the overlay network. In fact, it was called the overlay network first academically, and then the commercial world adapts an easier to understand term, the P2P network. And the hierarchy of the Skype network looks like this. At the lower level, once you've installed the Skype software, then you become one of these Skype clients, SCs. And some of us over time might be elected as a supernode, SN. Okay, so supernode is just like one of the peers, except that it's more resourceful. By that, Skype tried to select those who have higher uplink bandwidth, okay, or downlink bandwidth, okay, as supernode. Another important condition is this, the IP address. If the IP address the supernode is using or the client is using is global, meaning it's somewhat static and referable, destinable from other nodes, then that guy is qualified as a supernode. Okay, so supernode candidates either high uplink downlink bandwidth or having a global IP, static IP. Now, these guys, one supernode and a set of Skype clients or regular nodes, okay, ordinary nodes, form a cluster. And there could be a cluster here and there. Right. At the core, the supernodes will try to interconnect to each other and therefore connecting the clusters together. Okay, so you see, there's a core part and then there's the edge part. And the structure of the Skype network is somewhat like the internet. So at the core, it's well connected, having multiple connections to each other, but at the edge, just one connection to an access node. So this is actually Skype's network, two-level hierarchy. The last thing we talk about is this. Well, in BitTorrent, right, we talk about how one new peer joins the P2P network. Okay, so if there's a new Skype client joining, what happens is this. It's going to contact Skype's tracker, which we name the logging server. Okay. So the logging server is going to return a list of these supernodes. And this new peer will select one of these guys, usually the closest one, right? And then peer to the supernode that is the closest. And that's how a new peer joins the hierarchical overlay of Skype. Yeah, and this is the part that Polly finds the most interesting about Skype. There's a very nice trick Skype plays to get around this problem. Here. What if Bob and Alice, the two peers, are both sitting behind the NAT box, Network Address Translation Server? So if you set up a home network, and the deal with the ISP is usually that you get one IP address. But if you purchase one of these home gateways and have it running, what you might be thinking is also this, right? You can actually connect multiple devices to the home gateway, despite that the ISP provides only one IP address. Well, static or dynamic, but only one IP address. What is going on there? Well, it's going on here. Inside that gateway, part of the functionality is to do the network address translation. So all these messages coming out from the hosts behind the gateway or behind the net box, okay, within your home network, are carrying the packets using fake local IP addresses. At the box, it's translated to the IP address that ISP assigned to you. And from there, the messages can go, and the server out there can then send messages back to the IP address that the ISP assigned to you. Those local addresses that you are assigned from your home gateway is actually not reachable, okay, from other machines outside on the internet. All right, so general idea here is NAT here, although providing this, a local IP service so that you can run multiple end hosts there on the home network, but it prevents outside peers, outside hosts from initiating a direct connection to you. All right. So if Alice and Bob, the two peers, are both behind NAT, they cannot be setting up a P2P connection directly to each other. And the trick Skype plays is this, to exploit a third-party peer as a relay. So Alice and Bob here, they each have their own supernodes, isn't it? So Alice here, Alice is associated with the Alice supernode. Bob here is associated with Bob's supernode. So the both of you can pick one of the supernodes. For example, Bob picked to send voice to Alice's supernode. And the supernode here can relay the voice from Bob to Alice, and Alice sends calls back to the supernode. Supernode here relay that voice to Bob, okay? And Bob here can establish direct connection to a node having global IP address, not behind that. Alice here has no problem setting up direct connection to the supernode, which is not behind that. Alright, so this guy here is being exploited as a relay, as an exchange point of the data voices. Alright. So each peer here initiates session with the relay. A very cute hack, and that addresses this issue that many other teleconferencing or P2P network systems back then, really cool at that time.